Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time. It's the Thursday night edition here on Fight TV. I'm Damian Nelson coming to you here from the PWR studios. So excited after last night's Fighter Fest and the return of the Great American Bash on NXT. But my excitement shall not be contained just amongst myself. I am joined here by two of the best minds in the professional wrestling business, Hurricane-Helms and David Octavius the Tiberius, the alleged backyard, one-time knockout, straight-edge, hardcore Hall of Famer hero. Welcome to the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time with Hurricane-Helms. And we'll start with you since you have the byline, the star billing here on the show. Shane, how the hell are you tonight?
I'm doing great, man. I thought Wednesday night last night was a really good night of action, but we can't leave out, and I'm going to interject this week, starting this week, but we're going to expand upon it a little bit more next week. We got to give more love to Impact Wrestling because Tuesday night, I thought Impact put on a great show. Moose and Tommy Dreamer might have the angle of the week so far. The best interaction. There was some really great action on that show. We got to give more love to Impact Wrestling. We just got to. Let
me get this straight. You want to talk actively about Impact Wrestling.
Yes.
This is a desire of yours.
It is. It is. Impact is, they're flying under the radar right now for whatever reason, but they've got as much momentum as any company that there is. They just branched out. They got a bunch of new channels. I mean, the storyline with Moose and Tommy Dreamer this past week, man, they got good stuff. I'm looking forward to Slammiversary coming up. I think.
Whoa! So does that mean, Shane, you want to be the booker for Slammiversary then?
I mean, how much can you take? You know, I mean, I don't want to. I mean, start to get a
damn it, I've had enough. I'm not going to lie.
Get a little rough.
That is.
Yes.
And
I am wearing the Shane Helms shirt, the Hurricane, the Weapon of Mass Destruction shirt.
Mask
there.
Yes.
Folks, thank you, Hurricane. We'll take that into consideration. We're also joined by Dave Octavius, Tiberius hero. Dave, how are things in the Milwaukee here tonight?
You know, Milwaukee's been absolutely tremendous lately. I mean, we're in a heat wave. It's been in the upper 80s, lots of humidity, even more sunshine. You just can't beat being in Wisconsin this time of year.
And I understand the great Calla Rooney, along with yourself, recently, just this past weekend, celebrated Cal's 21st birthday, your 78th birthday.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, that's exactly what it was. You know, Cal is now 21, or as Shane would say, he's like 32.
He's at least 33.
At least
33 years old.
Yes. So there was a lot of birthday partying going on in the MKE this past weekend.
And yesterday was Brax the Destroyer's birthday, my 14-year-old. Yep.
Wow.
I remember when Braxton, both of your boys' birthdays are all within the same time, aren't they?
Yeah, and mine's next. Mine's July 12th. So Braxton's was July 1st. Sebastian was June 8th.
So let's do the math. All these June birthdays, when were y'all, if we subtract 9 months, when were y'all bored? Or
Sweetest Day weekend.
You had time off.
I know what happened with Sebastian. Sebastian happened because that was after my motorcycle wreck and I was laid up. So the only thing I could do was eat and and so I got back and so did she.
Folks, we want to thank you for joining us. We are broadcasting all over the world on our great partner, Fight TV. That's Fight, F-I-T-E TV, where you can watch Impact Wrestling, you can watch Ring of Honor Wrestling, you can also watch AEW outside the United States, but you can watch AEW Dark here all over the United States and all over the world as well. Want to appreciate and thank our broadcast partner, Fight TV. They've been great. This show, of course, presented to you by Collar and Elbow Brand. The Collar and Elbow Brand, where you can get great shirts, great wrestling merchandise at collarandelbowbrand.com. We'll talk more about that later. If you're watching us on our socials, where we're also live, be sure to subscribe to us right now on YouTube and turn on those notifications so you never miss an episode of the Pro Wrestling Report. And also, you can follow us and like us, rather, on Facebook. That's facebook.com/PWR show, PWR 360 now, rather. And you can watch us live on Facebook. And gentlemen, we are also happy to have just last week, thanks to you, Shane, launched our very own PWR Primetime with Hurricane-Helms podcast, available wherever you subscribe to podcasts. And of course, we don't talk about it enough because Dave doesn't put it in the notes he prepares for the show. But you've also got the Hurricane to Helms podcast. Tell us about what that's about.
Oh, well, pump the brakes. It's Highway to Helms. And I don't need notes because it's all up in here, isn't it? Yes.
We're on the highway to Helms.
There you go.
Highway to, I do.
Now we're talking.
I do theme songs. So I understand it costs about $100 an episode, depending on which bill you use to listen to that Highway to Helms podcast. But what you got for us this week on the podcast, Shane?
I talk about a little bit of actually I do a Q&A about every 3 or 4 shows. I do a Q&A. I hadn't done one in a while, so I did a very fun Q&A. Just kind of talk about things going on in Shane Helms' life. It's the Highway to Helms, so it's it's very egocentric. It's about me. I don't have any guests. I'm my own guest. No guests needed. But in the third segment of the show, I call the Comic Slam. Is devoted to the comic book world. It's my love for comics. I think comics are the most misunderstood and undercredited medium in existence. And so it's me giving back and showing love and getting my listeners, explaining to them what they're missing out in the world of comics.
Awesome. And we want to thank all of you for joining us, and thank you for being a part of the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime with Hurricane-Helms. What is this, our 5th, 6th, 7th week or so doing this show? And Shane, I got to say, just flat out here in front of the world, in front of everybody, you're our first regular superstar, legendary, I'm not calling you a legend, legendary co-host, if you will. And we appreciate you joining us and adding an amazing amount of insight to the show.
I've been a legendary co-host since '98. What are you talking about?
In the ass since '98. Here's the thing. Here's what's great about it now. Now that we have Hurricane on, you are not muted, David, but you are controlled, because all your shenanigans that you spew on this show are now quelched by the brain power of the wrestling superstar Shane Helms. Now, you may still be good at promoting, but Shane is the expert at wrestling. You are the expert at nothing, and I am the producer, director, host extraordinaire.
Yeah, we coming off. Damien's coming in hot.
Yeah, no kidding. You've changed.
Let's peel back the layers a little bit. Last couple of weeks, I've been doing this show from a hotel. I'm now in my house. I'm in my house. I've got the office set up. I'm home again. And our internet issues should be resolved. Shane, I apologize, because for weeks you were not presenting properly because of my issues. And I upgraded my internet. Cost me about $500 here in the new house. But I wanted to make sure the world can hear you. I wanted to make sure the world can hear you. And now they can, because not only are we videoing, but we're also podcasting. And that just feels damn good.
I like it.
I can't wait to see what else is going to be going on going forward. And again, check us out on the podcast. Wherever you listen to Highway to Helms, you will find Primetime with Hurricane-Helms.
I already did that, which means what he just said, Shane, was he doesn't know exactly where to find it. So, of course, you can just search.
Whoa. You said Hurricane to Helms. I want to make sure people know to look for Highway to Helms.
You can search PWR.
It's all about the details and the context.
Helms. The only person whose name has ever been that bold to be put on this show, Primetime with Hurricane-Helms, on your podcast network. That's Spotify, that's Podbean, that's all that. We're shilling a lot. Let's get to the damn show. And Dave, I know you don't want us to do that because you are, again, a loser. But last night, AEW presented Fighter Fest. That's fighter with a Y.
To be fair, I didn't lose. I went back and I watched.
Ladies and gentlemen, Al Gore.
I watched the Cody Jake Hager match. Jake Hager won that match. I don't understand how Cody got the victory. If it was up to me, it would be tied. Actually, I'd be winning 6-5. Instead, I lost 5-6.
He beat up a referee. We'll get to all that in a moment. We're going to talk about last night's Fighter Fest. We're going to talk about NXT. We're going to talk about the goings-on on Wednesday night in professional wrestling, where the two brands battled for supremacy. It was Fighter Fest versus the returning Great American Bash. Fighter Fest more stacked a card, as we said last week. NXT more of a, well, I guess they were focusing on quality over quantity. But regardless, the shows are in the books. Shane wants to talk about Impact. That's going to hurt. Only because, hell, when's the last time I watched Impact? I don't even know the last time I watched Impact. Dave, how about you?
I'll give you guys till next week to catch up. I'll just throw out they had some really good matches. Chris Bay against Suicide I thought was really good. Good tag team match with TJP and Fallah Bahh against Reno Scum. I really enjoyed that. Johnny Swinger is as entertaining as he's been his entire career. Just the fact that they found Johnny Swinger and found something for him and made him that entertaining. I'm going to take my hat off to creator for that. And as I touched on earlier, the angle with Moose, he ran through Crazy Steve this past Tuesday. And then the post-match interaction with Tommy Dreamer and Tommy Dreamer's preceding promo after that, man, it just got me hyped for Slammiversary. So Impact is really rolling. They're a partner of Fight TV, so I know you guys can get that. You got to check it out. I'll let you guys catch up next week, but I'm telling you, Impact's on the roll.
We'll keep rolling. We'll take your word for it until we watch it next week. And you can DVR Impact, right? I know you can watch it on Fight TV, but can you? Because what night is it on?
Tuesday nights access.
Central or Eastern? Tuesday.
Oh, please. That's going to confuse you even more. Just don't worry about that.
Let's get right down to it, folks. Where do you guys want to start? You want to start with AEW or you want to start with NXT? Last week, I think we started with AEW. It's up to you guys, though.
Dave,
you know what? Let's start off with AEW because the opening match that they had for Fyter Fest was the tag match.
My job. What are you doing? That's my job. I set it up, I frame it, and you talk about it.
You know what? You're slacking right now. So
Fyter Fest, ladies and gentlemen, on TNT, originally scheduled to be a special event. It was still a special event. It was night 1 of 2 on week 1 of 2, and this night, all the championships, with the exception of the World Championship, were on the line. And as Dave alluded to and mentioned, the opening contest did see a matchup between the tag team of NJF and Wardlow taking on the team of Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. So in that matchup, last week on Be the Booker, Dave, you indicated that in that matchup, it would be Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy winning. Of course, that did not happen. Shane said...
Whoa, pump the brakes. That's exactly what happened.
Oh, I knew that. Shane said that it would be MJF and Wardlow. So Shane, will give you the first chance to explain how you thought of what the match went, why it didn't quite get booked the way you would have booked it on Beat the Booker last week, and what, if anything, you would have done differently.
I would have kept the steam on Wardlow and MJF, but AEW didn't. So that is what it is. I think Jungle Boy looked really good in this match, and I think Luchasaurus looked okay as well. MJF and Wardlow, I'm going to assume that this is just planting seeds for their eventual separation. It's got to be. It's got to be what that was. A misdirect at the end with MJF almost nailing Wardlow, and then there's a very weird interaction there where MJF's like, "You can't do anything right." That kind of seemed out of place a little bit, but I don't hate the fact that Jurassic Express went over. I got nothing against that team. Just I think it's too early right now to kind of split Wardlow and MJF up, or even to plant those seeds. But still, it was a good match.
Well, Dave, This is a rare instance where you actually booked it differently and better than Shane did. So what did you think of the actual result?
I thought the match was very dry. I didn't feel like there was any sense of urgency. When you're watching a tag team match, you want your partner to be trying to motivate you when you're getting beat up to try to make the tag. I didn't see Luchasaurus concerned one bit that Jungle Boy was getting beat up by Wardlow and or MJF. And when he did get in the ring, it just seemed like slow motion. Like there was way too many different things going on. I didn't feel a sense of urgency. I didn't understand at all why MJF would be upset with Wardlow by saying you always screw things up, considering Wardlow won the lumberjack match last week. Mm-hmm. So he's been doing nothing but good things for MJF. And MJF, if you're going to like punch somebody with the ring, lay it in. It's like that little tap that MJF gave Wardlow. It's like, that's what could beat him. I thought for the first match, the opening match, when MJF comes out and says it's about ratings, I thought the match fell very flat. If it wasn't for Jim Ross and Chris Jericho and Tony Schiavone and Excalibur really giving it everything they had to call the match, I think this is the match I would have changed the channel on.
Interesting. What did you guys think of MJF's comments before the match referring to Luchasaurus as green and not just his mask?
I think he was 100% correct.
He wasn't wrong. Not at all.
You talk about somebody with a tremendous look and a tremendous amount of potential. It's Luchasaurus. You talk about somebody who has the opposite of that, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean they complement each other well. It's Jungle Boy, a great team. MJF and Wardlow teaming, though, a better team, even though they didn't win tonight.
Damien, do you know who else had a really good look? Was Ted Arcidi, okay?
I'm sorry?
Ted Arcidi had a really good look also.
I'm not familiar with that term.
Oh, well, I'm sure Shane does because he laughed.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying it's like, obviously Luchasaurus is a fan favorite, a crowd favorite. The people get behind him. But when he gets in the ring, I just don't see him being a dinosaur. I don't see him being a guy that's 6'4", 6'5", and a badass. I just see a guy that likes to throw a lot of kicks. And
I had Dave, if you don't mind me jumping in, me and Dave had a conversation because we had to talk about something. I compared Luchasaurus to Sean O'Hare, and I wish I would have saved that for the show for the first time because that's exactly who he reminds me of. And then this week, he actually did Sean O'Hare's old finish in the match. So maybe he's been eavesdropping on my iPhone here. I don't know. But yeah, I think Luchasaurus just wants to do things, and in his mind, it's cool because a big guy does them. But it's not really as impressive as he thinks he is. And Dave, you'll remember this conversation with Sean O'Hare one time. He goes, "Hey, what do your boys think about me doing the Swanton?" He's referring to Matt and Jeff, and I go, "They've never mentioned it. Why?" And this was in WCW. He goes, "Well, I mean, because I'm 250 and doing it." And I was like, "Dude, it's a front flip." Yeah, he was just. In his mind, him being a big guy doing something that a little guy does, I was like, yeah, okay, but that can't be all you are. Just a big guy doing something that a little guy does. There has to be more to you than that. And I mean, I tried to drill that in Sean's head, and he didn't really get it as mentally. He didn't get the business nowhere near as what any of us has hoped, because he had probably the best look, one of the best looks ever in the business. But he just kind of struggled to get what we were doing. And I feel like that's where Luchasaurus is at right now. I hope he can get over that, because from a visual standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, there's money to be made with Luchasaurus. But he needs to figure out that in-ring style. It doesn't complement the gimmick at all right now, and doesn't complement his size.
No, and the part that drove me nuts, again, was when Jungle Boy was getting his ass handed to him, he just sat in the corner. It's like, be that beast, be that monster. And when you get in the ring, a hot tag, Shane, you want to beat everyone's ass that was beating up your boy. And that did not happen. And it's just like Wardlow, who doesn't have the years of experience as Luchasaurus, looked like he was more of the aggressor, looked more of the guy that was the badass. Obviously, he's the big heater heel. But just like it was a night and day that Wardlow knows how to wrestle as a big guy.
Well, it is Fighter Fest, folks, that we're talking about. Last week, we did be the booker, where both Shane and Dave picked who, or not necessarily picked, but booked who they would book to win those matchups and why. And we're reviewing that right now here on this edition of Prime Time. The next matchup I want to talk about pitted the Penelope Ford. How do you say it, Shane?
It's Penelope Ford, or as Booker T likes to say, Pentaloop Ford.
All hail. Going up against Sheeta, a good matchup as well. And, both of you picked Sheeta to win that matchup, which indeed ended up being the case. But Shane, Hurricane, what did you think of the match as it was presented? I thought it was a damn good physical effort by both.
It was excellent. I think it exceeded expectations. I think Penelope Ford's come a long way, and this was a good night for her. This kind of made her, even in defeat, this kind of made you open your eyes up to her a little bit more. They kind of involved Kip Sapien in there. I don't know if that was that necessary, but I get why they did it at the same time. But I think the champion came out looking good, and she made the challenger look good. So that was a win-win. There's an old Paul Heyman adage, and I'm not sure if Paul Heyman came up with it, but one person goes over, one person gets over. And that's what happened in this match. So I thought this was a win-win all the way around.
David Hero, what do you say?
I agree 110%. Penelope Ford had her breakout match last night. She became a star because she has the charisma. She has heat. She's got a great look. She's aggressive. And I think of all the women's matches I've seen in AEW, I think Penelope Ford has raised the game for all of them because she's not just a wrestler. She's a character. And that's what separates her for me right now from everybody else. The only thing I wasn't a big fan of was the kendo stick getting involved. It's just like, once again, nothing seems to be organic in these first two matches. It just seems like everything was A, B, C, D, E all the way through. I just felt like it was paint by numbers or color by numbers or whatever you want to call it. I just didn't feel like that the kendo stick came across being natural in the ring, where it just popped up and landed in somebody else's hands.
Well, the next match we want to talk about as part of our review of AEW Fyter Fest was the matchup for the TNT Championship. Cody defending against Jake Hager. Jake Hager coming up short after some shenanigans throughout, and at the end of the matchup, Cody retains the TNT Championship at Fyter Fest. David Hero, what did you think of this outing?
Well, I thought Jake had a really good match with Cody. Cody struggled with Jake, and this is the first time I think I've really seen Cody struggle in a match where he had to fight back from underneath, because Jake was just a lot more physical and a lot more vicious. I thought Arn Anderson getting involved, for me, I wish he would get involved less, because he's not Arn Anderson anymore. And eventually someone's going to get their hands on Arn, and I don't know if Cody can save him. But overall, I thought it was a good match. I mean, this match was going up against Robert Stone and Rhea Ripley. So it's like interesting placement for both. But I like the finish, because now it's not, okay, Cody's now done with Jake Hager, let's go on to the next guy. Now there's like some intrigue, some interest, there's like some doubt, and I look forward to seeing another match with the two of them.
Shane, Hurricane-Helms, Cody versus Jake Hager.
This was the part of the night where I was flipping back and forth the most, because I loved what was happening on both shows. And so, first of all, I want to say that Jake, at the beginning, looking at his ring attire, I'm like, this is the most generic look on television right now. But that being said, once the match started,
shorts.
They look like boxers that you wear to bed. That's what they look like.
They were boxers like that you wear on laundry day.
Yeah, boxer briefs. But I ain't gonna say that to his face. Actually, I would. I know Jake pretty well, so he's a friend of mine. But once the match gets started, man, you forget about it. He's really improved, and I mean, Jake's always been good, but I thought that was a really good match. He works like a big guy that can whoop your ass, and here's why: he's a big guy that can whip your ass, and that's how he comes off. We were talking about Luchasaurus a little while ago, who I don't really buy that stuff. I buy everything Jake Hager does. Jake Hager looked like a monster out there. Visually, I wish there was a way we could figure out a little better look for him, but I love this match. Cody did struggle. I didn't mind Arn Anderson getting involved. I like that Arn Anderson got involved. Cody had to be a little sneaky here. Cody had to be a little dirty. I love that Cody's not the white meat baby face that will never break a rule. I love that he'll break some rules if he needs to. It's because against somebody like Jake Hager, that makes a lot of sense to me. I thought this was a really good match. I love that Cody's that continues his run as a TNT champion, but Jake still came out. Jake didn't suffer from this loss at all. There's a very creative finish they did at the end. And then he got his monster heat back by punching that referee. The only thing there from a production standpoint, I wish that Dustin wasn't in the ring while that happened, because Dustin just had landed a punch on Jake.
Yeah.
And then Dustin just sit there and watched him punch the referee. I thought that kind of made them as baby faces look like, hey, why don't you go help this poor helpless referee? You punched him in the face a while ago and you're not now. That was a little bit of a disconnect for me, but I think, like I said, Cody went over and Jake looked strong coming out of it. So I liked everything about that.
For me, I was surprised that Dustin was out there, because it's like, where was the inner circle? If they're such a tight-knit group, why wouldn't some of them gone out there to neutralize Arn Anderson and Dustin? I mean, Jake's wife, obviously, she's not afraid to get involved, but it would have been cool to see LAX come out there and just show a little bit of support for Jake.
Here's a question about when you talk about the inner circle, and at times reference this match. I thought there was a little too much going on, to be honest with you. And I'm not sure. Jericho was great on commentary, but Jericho was the best of the 3-4 sitting there on commentary as well, which probably shouldn't be the case. But be that as it may, there was a bit too much going on in this matchup. But talking about the inner circle, shouldn't they have found a way for the endorsed Sammy Guevara, who I know is suspended, but he's suspended for performing, so he could have been in the audience, right?
No.
No,
there's no way. You can't put him on TV. You can't do anything with him for a little while. That whole smell has to go away for a little bit.
I was being a bit facetious, if you will, but be that as it may.
Moving on.
AEW Fighter Fest. Cody retains against Jake Hager, and next we see a matchup between Private Party going up against the Proud and Powerful. It was Private Party getting the win there. Is that the match that happened? What am I talking about? Proud and Powerful. Oh, you called them, Shane, something else. It's Santana and Ortiz with Matt Hardy.
Well, it's LAX.
And Dave, okay, pre-show note, if you will. When Shane and I were talking about that, you said LAX, Shane. Dave, you weren't on the call yet, so you guys are in cahoots.
No, they're LAX.
Why are they LAX?
Because that's the name of their tag team is LAX.
They're what?
Latin American Exchange.
That was in Impact Wrestling, which Shane wants to talk about next week.
But they were in Impact Wrestling. They were LAX version 2.
Same people?
No, that was Homicide and Hernandez.
I'm stopping you right now. Actually, you bring up LAX, and I want to ask a question. Just because I saw a tweet from him recently, and it's been a while since I'd seen anything. But Sean Hernandez, right?
Yes.
Yeah. He was LAX. Is he still wrestling?
Yes. Yeah. LAX, this version you saw last night on AEW was at Blizzard Brawl 2 years ago as LAX.
Wait, I know that. But why is Hernandez not signed to one of the 3 companies right now?
I think he just recently did something with Impact not too long ago.
Yes. Maybe that's why I saw a tweet or two. But all right, Private Party. So Dave, I think Shane, actually, you had Private Party in this matchup. How did you think?
I think we both did.
We both did,
right? Yeah.
I didn't want to give Dave credit for it though, but
it was good. I think Private Party still got some. They're still a little rough around the edges from a psychological standpoint, and the ending of this match, man, like LAX hit like a 10-move combination on Private Party and still couldn't beat them. And then Private Party, the guy that took that 10-move combination was able to do a jumping Frankensteiner off the, super Frankensteiner off the top rope. It was a little bit much, but they both showed incredible athleticism. I think Ortiz and Santana are just fantastic as LAX and as the Inner Circle. They've been great. So, Private Party got the win, which I think storyline wise, I'm not opposed to that at all. So it was good. It was good. It was good, but I do see some areas where Private Party can improve.
Like their striking, also, like their kicking.
Before you get to that, Orange Cassidy, there during this matchup Also, he and Jericho getting physical after we know that they have a match coming up as well. I'm looking forward to that because, as I've mentioned many a time on this show here, I'm just a big fan of Orange Cassidy. But Dave, your thoughts on that matchup? You did indeed pick Private Party as well. And what did you think of the match as it was presented versus how you would have booked it?
What I'm thinking is, how are LAX selling for some of these moves? Because it just, again, it seemed like slow motion, trying to do really cool stuff, but it's not fast enough for it to look nearly as cool. And I'm thinking, oof, Shane, you watched the same match I did.
Mm-hmm.
How hard is it to sell some of that stuff?
It's tough when it doesn't look like they're hitting you. Like, I don't know. I don't know what the impact is. I mean, ideally, you want it to look like it's killing you, and it's not. That's the perfect scenario. It doesn't always work that way. The worst case scenario is when it looks like it's not hurting you, and they're actually knocking the shit out of you. That's the worst case scenario. So sometimes when on TV, there's an unwritten rule. You got to lay it in a little bit. When the red light's on, we need contact. So they need to lay it in a little bit more, or at least look like they are. And that's a part of being young. Not a lot of schools teach good striking. That's obvious.
Part of me was watching, I'm thinking they're concentrating more on how they're supposed to do the move than what they're actually doing at times. And for me, that was becoming a big disconnect. It seemed like that was almost in every match. I felt that. I mean, with the exception of Cody and Hager, it seemed like those two guys legit went out there and when they were laying everything in. But the other matches, it's just like, stop. You could just see their brain processing what they had to do. Like it was going through steps of the match, and it just didn't come across as a sense of urgency.
Yeah, when you do too much of the ABCD, you lose the naturalness of it. So you want to look like it's natural, even when it's not. So generally, that comes with experience. I mean, keep in mind these guys are all young, not making an excuse. They're on TV. It needs to be good. So that's why, as a company, that's where after the match, there needs to be agents, there needs to be producers talking to them. That's what they're there for. Like, hey, those kicks look like shit. Those punches look like shit. You either got to lay them in or learn how to throw them. It's one of the two. Ideally, learn how to throw them.
Well, the next match, and actually before we get to the next match, I want to get you guys' thoughts on the announcement that was made during the broadcast that while Fyter Fest is completing next week, week 2, night 2 of Fyter Fest, it's going to be Fight for the Fallen the week after that, where Jon Moxley will return to defend his championship as opposed to what was originally scheduled on Fyter Fest next week. And as we all know, as you've heard, has been announced, Jon Moxley had been exposed to a person, his wife, who announced that she had tested positive for COVID-19. So was this the way AEW could have handled this, or should they have done it differently, Shane?
It didn't bother me. I thought it was fine. It didn't throw up a red flag or anything. So, keep in mind, we're in the social media age. Everybody knows what's going on behind the scenes anyway. So it wasn't like, other than Taz kind of throwing the jab at the end, which, that shit didn't really bother me either. I thought they handled it okay.
I like the video they did about Brian Cage, which was narrated by Taz, which was a hype piece for Cage, but it was very, very well done, actually. Dave Hero, your thoughts on this match moving to 2 weeks from now, almost extending Fyter Fest for a third week?
I would have liked to have seen them take the belt off of Moxley and just hand it over to Brian Cage. I think that gives Cage a lot more heat going into a quote unquote rematch then with Jon Moxley. I think knowing that match is being pushed back, I think they should have had Cage wrestle somebody either this week and next week just to get over how big, strong, and dominant he is. So that way the audience is more familiar with this, beast of a Brian Cage, which just means more. Or just give him the belt and say, hey, Moxley can't defend it. By default, and just dump a ton of heat on Cage to make people now truly want to see Moxley win that title back. But pushing it back a couple weeks, it's fine. It's going to be fine. It's just
because you hate it.
No, I don't hate it, but it just seems like there's no heat for this match. There's no sense of urgency. There's no real backstory. Brian Cage won a ladder match. He's now number one contender. He's beaten up a few guys along the way. Jon Moxley has beaten up a couple of guys along the way. But it's not like they're building towards this huge big match between two legit heavyweight contenders.
Shane, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I don't like that idea at all. I mean, I think if Moxley has to retire or something like that, okay, you can do that. But I think in the midst of a pandemic, he has to pull out of the match. I think it would devalue that championship. And my biggest thing in the business right now is make these championships mean more than ever. I think if you just hand it over to Brian Cage, a guy who's still relatively new to the company, I don't think that adds any value to that championship whatsoever. It may add some heat. It may add some interest. I won't disagree with that part, but I think it will devalue the championship, and I'm 100% against that.
Well, the tag team championships were on the line as we talk about the last matchup from Fyter Fest tonight. It was, of course, the team of Hangman Adam Page and also Kenny Omega going up against the Best Friends, who were escorted to the ring by Trent's mother. Interesting. But it was the tag team champions retaining. Now, of course, at the end, we saw some shenanigans as FTR gets involved in that match, along with the Young Bucks as well after the bell. But gentlemen, in this match, you had the Best Friends, Shane, and David, you had the tag champ. So it's a rare moment where Dave actually booked it a little better than Shane did. So we'll start with you, Shane.
Rare moment? I booked it right like 5 times tonight.
Tell us more about that T-shirt you're wearing.
Well, it's
Shane,
that shirt looks good. That shirt look good than a mother.
The tag team championships are retained by Hangman and Page. You didn't want to see it, or you would not have booked it to go that way, but that's how it went. Shane, what do you say?
Yeah, I thought this match was some bullshit, is what I'm talking I wanted the Best Friends to win when they pulled up in the minivan. That shit was on time. When I used to ride with Sanjay Dutt and Daivari, we would rent a minivan every week on purpose, and we would call it the van. Because we ain't gangsters no more. We ain't young. We don't want no sports cars. We wanted to be in a big ass minivan rolling. So we booked the minivan every week. So I popped when they pulled up in that minivan. And then they had to steal some Buff Bagwell heat and have the mama involved. Now that was an interesting concept. I haven't seen that since Buff. But good match. These are two good teams, two of the best teams in the world. And obviously AEW, they still want to run with Adam Page and Kenny Omega. So I'm not going to fault them on that because they're a fantastic tag team. I just would have went differently. I think with all the other tag teams in the world, right? I mean, that's going on. The shenanigans after the match, I wasn't too crazy about that. That just for whatever. I just think this could have been the Best Friends night. I would have loved to see them come out with the tag team championships, but they didn't. It is what it is. But that's what I still stand by my decision that's what I would have done.
How about you, Dave? You picked it for the Best Friends to you picked Omega and Page to win. That's what happened. How did you think it actually went?
I thought it went the way I thought it would. The tag champs retained. I think if Best Friends win, well, now they're the underdog champions going into every match because I don't think they're a favorite to beat the Young Bucks. I don't think they're a favorite to beat the Lucha Brothers, FTR.
Don't you think that's more interesting though? Especially as a babyface tag team? Even if they were to turn heel, still being that underdog that has to fight the challenges to keep those championships, that's more interesting to me. That was the Rock and Roll Express. Even when every time they were the World Tag Team Champions, they were still the underdogs, no matter who.
I just don't think that they would have to start off by defeating Page and Omega. If it would have been any other tag team, I think Best Friends could have and should have won. But I just think that they need to keep the value up and elevated for Page and Omega, because that's the match with FTR, the Young Bucks, when they do some big tag team gauntlet match.
A tag team gauntlet? You mean everybody like feeding in one at a time gauntlet match?
Yeah.
But then it don't matter who's the champions if you're having a gauntlet match.
But I just think on the marquee, it looks better having Page and Omega than best friends. That's just my opinion. You know,
Okay.
if I'm putting it together and I only have X number of spots on my poster, and I have an opportunity of having Page and Omega as my tag champs or best friends as tag champs on my poster, I'm going with Page and Omega.
And see, I'm still looking at the heavyweight championship picture. I want to see Adam Page and Kenny Omega in the heavyweight championship picture. That's why I think that's where they're going to be best utilized. I think that's the best fit for them. You got all of these other tag teams, long-term tag teams that are in AEW now, and then you got the makeshift tag team champions. I don't know. I understand exactly what you're saying, star power, if you can't fit nobody else up on the poster. But I think it's time to get Adam Page and Kenny away from each other and let both of them go into the singles pushes and singles careers that we know we all know what kind of singles career they can have. So
right, and Shane, why do you think that hasn't happened? When AEW was founded and when it started, Adam Page and Kenny Omega were like the two pillars they were going to build this company around.
I think they just didn't want to seem too obvious. I think they worried too much because Kenny is seen as one of the founders of the company or whatever, a partner in the company, just like the Young Bucks. So they don't want to seem like, hey, we're putting all of the belt. You don't want to put the belts on the booker. You don't want to Vern Gagne your entire company. You know what I'm saying?
But they did that by putting the tag belts on them.
Well, I mean, I thought you were talking about why didn't you use them in the singles thing. But
right.
Adam Page wasn't one of those, right? I mean, when you had the original ones, it was just the Bucks, Cody, and Omega and Jericho.
Right, but I think when they signed Adam Page, they thought this is the guy that's going to lead the company. And what they did is, Page came up short against Jericho, and then Omega came up real short against Pac. And it's just like, wow, it's like they didn't I thought they would have used them better, because there's a lot of fans here in the States that don't follow New Japan Wrestling that didn't realize what Kenny Omega is or what an Adam Page is. They understand the Bucks because when they were the Hardy Boys Light in TNA many years ago, they were at least familiar with them. But they haven't done a very good job.
Maybe that's why. Maybe they're just doing a slow build, because Adam Page's really only exposure was the Ring of Honor. So maybe they're not counting on that. And maybe just like you said with Kenny Omega, they're not counting on fans to have seen him in New Japan. So maybe they're just trying to do a slow build, and that's why they're the tag team champions. I mean, that could very well be the case. I can see that as well. Mm-hmm. But I know coming in, I expected Kenny Omega or Jericho to be the champion. And then, when it went to Moxley, like that was just, that to me has been a little strange ever since Moxley. And not saying Moxley isn't a big star. I think he's a huge star. He's just such a wild card. Like I see him as a guy that wins the title and then somehow he gets taken away from him and he's chasing it. But
Chris Jericho, for not being the champion of AEW, is still the most over guy, even when he's doing commentary in the company.
Yeah, he's incredible in commentary. But going back to the show tonight, you had 3 championship matches and no title changes. So, and that does happen. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes the champions just win. They're the champions for a reason. But, especially when you had the women's a successful defense from the women's champion and then a successful TNT defense from Cody. Boy, I was really itching for the tag team title change there in the main event. And it did happen. I personally, Shane Helms, I was let down.
I got to ask you guys this: as you, in a moment, we'll get your overall thoughts on Fyter Fest, but I'll share mine just from a fan's perspective and watching the show. We've long talked on this broadcast about how AEW feels different every week, feels better than NXT, feels like there's fire, drive, desire. They're having fun. The presentation's different. I think that actually hurt them last night because nothing felt overly special for Fyter Fest. There was graphics. There was a different setup. There was Chris Jericho on commentary. These matches had meaning, reason, and the destination by which we got there. But the big feel of it being a special show wasn't there, at least for me. It wasn't a bad show. It wasn't a great show. It was a slightly different show, but not different enough for me to have felt it was a special presentation as opposed to their weekly Dynamite presentation on TNT. Dave Hero, what would you say your overall thoughts of Fyter Fest were last night?
You know, Damien, I would have to agree with you. It felt like I was still watching Dynamite. Yeah, they had the really cool setup. They had the palm tree gimmicks on the stage. They had the one random bikini girl there that Jim Ross thought was being very colorful. It just, there wasn't that big fight feel. Again, and I keep saying this a lot, I didn't feel a sense of urgency with the exception of Cody and Swagger. And I guess that just shows you when you put talents in the ring that have that experience, that have been doing TV in WWE, where they truly get it. They understand where to be. They know where the hard camera is. They know how to work certain, how to tell a better story on TV. That for me, that was the standout. And I just think that some of these other younger talents need a lot of catching up to do.
Shane, what do you say?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, some of that too can be chalked up to, there's only so much they can do in the exact same arena with the exact same setup. Their hands are kind of tied in that regard. So we can't really hold that against them too much. It did. I agree with you both. It felt like another episode of Dynamite. It didn't feel like a pay-per-view or a Fyter Fest or whatever that's supposed to be. So, but yeah, I think that's more of the handicap or the hand, being handcuffed because of the pandemic more than anything. I think if this could have been at a different arena, they could have had a different setup and added a little bit more to it. But too, when you throw in, like I said earlier, no title changes, it really did. If there would have been a title change at the end of that night, it changes the whole tone of we wouldn't be saying this right now, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Fair points made by both of you, and also that wraps up our discussion on Fyter Fest for 45 minutes or so. We spend so much time on AEW, and now Hurricane wants to fit Impact into this discussion as well. We might have to do a separate show for that, but be that as it may, you both, Dave, we heard earlier about why you're wearing the shirt you're wearing because you're a loser, but it's a great shirt, and every time you lose on Be the Booker overall, you have to wear some Hurricane-Helms gear. But where is it? Where exactly is it that I can get that shirt, the CXC shirt? Where is it I can get it, and what kind of deals can I get on it?
Well, for everything Hurricane-Helms, Stand Back Hurricane-Helms, and some of the great collar and elbow shirts, the whole new summer line is out right now. Go to collarandelbowbrand.com. Use the promo code PWR360 where you can save. They got some really sweet-looking new summertime gear. Shorts, hats, tank tops, brand new designs out right now. Collarandelbowbrand.com, promo code PWR360.
That was well done, Dave. And Shane, that's a great shirt you're wearing there. It's CXE. So I think that stands for, let's see, Collar
and Elbow Brand. So that's what I wear basically every day.
That logo looks familiar.
Yep, without a doubt. And I guess we're going to have to talk to Collar and Elbow Brand and get some more different Hurricane designs since Dave's going to be wearing one every week. I don't want him to be wearing the exact same stuff week after week after week.
Yeah, I'm going to give a call to Rod and say, hey, we need to get a few more shirts out there. Yeah,
we've had some ideas back and forth, so we got to come up with something.
It's collarandelbowbrand.com. Thank you all for joining us here live on Fight TV. That's FITE Fight. We're also live on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook as well. And if you haven't already, you can see all of our Twitter names here on the screen. You can follow us there. And you can also be sure to subscribe to the broadcast on YouTube. Never miss an episode. In fact, we bring you more than just the mega show here with Shane Helms. We bring you the Super Show on Saturday nights at 7 o'clock p.m. That's also on Fight TV. It's the PrimeTime Super Show with our entire broadcast team, including Jason Solomon, Linda Kay, and Andrew Baydala, along with, I think, Dave, are you on that show?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm the guy in the corner over on that corner. Yeah.
Saturday night, 7 o'clock on Fight TV. And every single Monday through Friday, you can join the man they call Meathead on PWR Today, our daily news brief podcast. Actually, it's more of an opinion brief podcast that you can take with you, listen to on the go. I actually listen to Meathead and sometimes you, Dave, in the shower in the morning because it's 20 minutes or less. And
that's all it takes you is 20 minutes or less in the shower. That's it.
Well, if I'm alone.
Sweet. That's not what we wanted to know or hear or understand or think.
I'm transparent. You asked a question, I gave you an answer. That's all the questions you'll be asking.
Yes.
Today, yes. You can find it at PWR360.com. You can also find it on your podcast channel. So we've been pushing podcasts all night long, but one thing we do want to push is what happened at NXT Great American Bash. It's hard to say that. Great American Bash. It was several matches, 3 matchups actually, and another match was made for next week. This a 2-week event being presented by WWE NXT. And the first match we saw to open the night was a fatal 4-way #1 contenders match for the NXT Women's Championship. It was Mia Kim versus Tegan Nox versus Candice LeRae and Dakota Kai. In this matchup, Hurricane, you went with Candice LeRae. David Hero went with Dakota Kai, I believe it is. And we actually saw the winner of this matchup after LeRae was eliminated first. Sorry, Shane. Mia Yim was then eliminated, and it would be Tegan Nox getting the win to become the #1 contender for the NXT Women's Championship. Since she was eliminated first, and you would have booked her to win, that being Candice LeRae. Shane Helms, what did you think of this matchup, and why did the booking go way differently than you would have made it happen?
Well, I think if you remember, I talked about when I picked Candice, I thought that was just to break up the monotony. I felt it was either be Candice or Dakota Kai. I think Dave and I both agreed that it was going to be a heel coming out based on who the champion was. But maybe that's why NXT decided to go against the obvious and go with Tegan Nox. Not upset about it at all. I thought it was a good match. They had a lot of time, and they put in some good minutes. So I thought Tegan Fox looked great in the match. So I got no problems with that decision.
David Hero, what do you say?
I was very excited when Candice LeRae was eliminated first. I'm like, hey, this could be my night. Yeah, especially when I started out, with the win on the other show with AEW with the Jurassic Express, and of course, all downhill after that. But yeah, I was surprised that Tegan Nox got the victory. I really thought it was going to be heel. I figured if it wasn't going to be Dakota Kai or Candice, I'm like, hey, you know what? Maybe now it's time for Mia Yim, and it wasn't even her time yet. So it's going to be very interesting going forward to see how they're going to put this match together. Makes me think that there may be a new NXT Women's Champion before that match ever happens.
I don't know, man. If you watched Io Shirai with Sasha Banks at the end of the night, which they threw that match on us on the show, they announced that on social media. I guess we could have got together and still had some picks through text or something like that. Io Shirai looks like her style. I think she could go either way. I think she could wrestle exactly the same, be it a baby face or a heel or against a baby face and a heel, and I think it will be accepted just fine. I think she kind of walks that line. Her aggression, it doesn't really lean heel or babyface either one way or the other. I think she'll be fine. I think her and Tegan Fox will tear it down.
I want to make a point there, or ask you guys a point about that. On AEW, consistently from week to week, they really announce their matches in advance, and we don't see that from WWE. If we do, many times they change, or many times they add or subtract matches, or just change them like they never said they were going to happen. NXT last night, same story, because in addition to the other bonus match we had Oney Lorcan versus Timothy Thatcher, which had not been announced as well. What strategy is better? Is it AEW strategy of here's what we're giving you, and generally we're not going to sway from that? Or is it NXT/WWE strategy of we might announce some matches, and if we do, that might be what you get, but it probably won't be what you get? Which works better from your perspective, Shane?
I think the big matches, the more time you have to promote them, the better, no doubt. But I think you also want to have some surprises here and there. So I think it could be a little bit of both. I think, it's odd that the Sasha Banks match wasn't announced further in advance, being the star power that she has. But, there could be, underlying factors behind that. I mean, I know we say it, we've said it a million times, but we're in a weird era right now, so it could just be a personnel issue. Maybe they wanted to, NXT did win the ratings last week, so maybe they just wanted to try something to continue that in and bring in Sasha Banks. So I don't mind a surprise at all. I don't want the show to be overly predictable. But go ahead.
What I think it was is that they announced the match during the show, right? Because I didn't know it was going to happen until I started watching. And it wasn't until right before the match started where they were, at least for the first time I heard, it was a non-title match. And once I heard that took my interest level completely from 10 down to 3, because then I didn't care anymore. So maybe that's why they waited, because if they would have announced it was a non-title match in the main event of the Great American Bash going up against the main event of Fyter Fest, maybe the fans would have immediately just gone right back over to Fyter Fest and not ended the show with Sasha Banks.
See, and I talked about this a little bit last week, and I know when I said it, whatever it was, a month and a half on Twitter, talking about how non-title matches are just bullshit. Nobody cares about that shit anymore. They've got to get away from that. It literally, when I find out it's a non-title match, I just don't care, because there's no consequences to that match. You take you take the main consequence. You got a champion in a match. The main consequence that could possibly happen is this champion losing their title. And then you just completely erase that. I don't give a shit. I don't care what moves are going to happen. I know it'll be a decent match. No doubt about that with those two competitors. But you take away the biggest dramatic element that you can have in a wrestling match, being a championship, and you just take it away for no reason. I don't get it.
And and I know, Damian, we're jumping around now to the main event after the opening match, but if we're going to talk about Sasha Banks in that match, for me, what was frustrating is Asuka shows up, hits her with the green mist. That should have been the end of the match. I don't think that Sasha should have kicked out, because now when Asuka and Sasha have that match in a week or 2 weeks from now that mist means more. Let her kick out then if she wants to. But now she already kicks out of the mist. It's now a weapon that will not work for Asuka going forward.
Agreed, 100%.
Well, the next matchup we did play Be the Booker for was a match that both of you had some struggles with last week. And Dave, you actually mentioned who would have thought we'd ever see one of the participants in this matchup in a marquee match at the Great American Bash. But it was entertaining, to say the least. I thought it was good. It was Rhea Ripley going up against Aaliyah and Robert Stone being the aforementioned person. And Aaliyah, she didn't do that whole age ain't nothing but a number thing. Is that the same girl?
No, she's a little bit older than that one. Yes, and R. Kelly was not involved.
Ooh, can you go there?
Well, it's too late now, unless you want to take it out of post-production.
We're live now. Rhea Ripley
whoops.
over Aaliyah, and
Hurricane-Helms did not say that.
but did the Hurricane say it? It was Rhea Ripley getting the win in that matchup, folks. There were some shenanigans, of course. Again, Robert Stone getting involved. Shane, you picked Ripley to win that matchup. Dave, who did you pick?
I picked Robert Stone and Aaliyah.
Of course, we'll start with that. We'll start with you then for that, because, well, you were a bit off filter again. Go ahead, Shane.
I need to jump in.
Please jump in.
I got to do this because I'm an honest person.
Uh-oh.
Damian, you got it wrong. I picked Robert Stone.
Did you? My green highlights here say that you picked Ripley.
This week is a tie.
Oh, it is a tie. I'll be damned. Look at that.
Take your shirt off, Dave.
He's still
on TV. Yeah.
Yeah, I picked Robert Stone. I actually went back because when you sent me the text, I was going, I didn't, because we got into the whole, because remember I said how entertaining it would be if Robert had Rhea Ripley and he had control of her for how many weeks of entertaining television that would be. I did say they'll probably go with Rhea. I did say that, but my pick was still what I would have done was Robert Stone. So I got to be honest here. I you see how I am. I could have easily went with this, and that's what Dave Hero would have done because he's a sumbitch. Dave Hero would have done.
Is it because I'm tan? Is that what it is? Is that why I would have done that?
Hold up. Stop. Pause right there. Stop.
Shane Helms did not say that.
I don't know if you know Hurricane. I don't know. You know Dave. Dave.
Wait, hold on. Hey,
he needs.
Am I wrong, Damien? Am I wrong?
Look. I'm Sacagawea. I'm just saying.
I ain't saying. I'm just saying. But anyway, like I was saying.
Please keep saying.
I had to be on. I got to be honest with you. So I did pick Robert Stone in that. So me and Dave, I think we both took the L in this. But that being said, the match I thought was entertaining. I think Robbie E was probably the most entertaining thing on either show this week. AEW and NXT. Him coming out and Mauro Ranallo referring to him as Robert Hands of Stone. Immediately, I was popping. I thought it was very entertaining, and so hats off to Robbie E for making the most out of that. I was very entertained by that. Rhea Ripley looked great, but I think they missed a golden opportunity of some good television with her and Robert E going forward for the next couple of weeks.
I really do too. I agree with that. What I thought was great was Aaliyah had fire tonight. She was legitimately trying to win for Robert Stone, and in today's world, today's society, intergender matches are now frowned upon. Robert Strauss did a fantastic, he did a #tremendous job of not really being physical with Rhea Ripley. There was no punching. There was no kicking. He was trying to roll her up. They tried doing the suplexes. But as far as all the physicality, he let Aaliyah do that. It was more like Robbie was just pointing and telling her what direction to go in. So very well done. Not easy to pull off when everyone's expecting a whole lot of craziness in matches nowadays. But I thought they told a really good story. The finish I thought was interesting. I would have rather have seen her just beat Aaliyah than Robbie and Aaliyah together, because then Robert Stone has another out saying, hey, you didn't beat me, you beat her. And to keep that going forward.
Interesting perspective. There would be one more match on NXT for the Great American Bash, and it would be Dexter Lumis going up against Roderick Strong. Now, Roderick would attack Dexter before the matchup begun, but things didn't go Roderick's way once they were strapped together. This, of course, the very first strap match in the history of NXT. We've seen many. It was a staple many times at the Great American Bash, so well-fitting, well placed on this card. But a bit surprising, Dexter Lumis making Roddy tap out in this matchup. Dexter Lumis gets the win, and it feels as if, let me make sure I get this right this time. Shane, you went with Lumis. Dave, you went with Roderick in this match.
We both had Dexter Lumis.
Damn. We should play Be the Booker host bingo. Will I get it right? Dexter Lumis gets the win. Roderick Strong takes the loss. Bobby Fish gets involved as expected. Wild matchup. What did you guys think of the matchup ending the way it did with Dexter Lumis getting the win, Dave?
There's two things I took from this. I thought most draft matches were that you have to go and touch all four corners.
Back in the day.
Well, but I thought that's still how it was. But I thought that Dexter Lumis did another great job of showing his character, how committed he is. I thought Roderick Strong did a fantastic job being a coward, but still being tough, if that makes any sense. The one takeaway I did take from that is seeing Bobby Fish get involved, nobody coming to the aid of Dexter Lumis. And by nobody, I'm saying Velveteen Dream.
Oh.
So even though he was in a car accident Friday, you just would have, you would have expected, maybe you would have seen something of Velveteen Dream. You did not for now the second or third week in a row. I think that's kind of telling with all the rumor innuendo that his time may be up in NXT. I said it's rumor and innuendo. I didn't say it's fact. So
you've been reading the internet.
I read. I am so well read. You have no idea. I read everything.
They reported on Velveteen Dream, that situation. They reported that on Fox News.
No, but I think Tyrus talked about it on Fox News. So yes. But I mean, it was good. And if this is how they're going to be using Dexter Lumis going forward, I think he's going to have a very strong career. I mean, it's at the rate they're using him. I think it's a matter of time before he'll have some type of gold around his waist in NXT.
Shane, what'd you think of the matchup? The Dexter Lumis getting the win over Roddy Strong.
I hate strap matches. I've always hated strap matches. I would not ever want to be in one. Too, like Dave talked about, I was thinking it was going to be the drag to the four corners, and then when it wasn't, I was like, okay. I'm not sure exactly when they changed that. I can't actually remember the last time I even saw a strap match, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think Dexter Lumis, I think it's difficult when he's selling because they're going with the gimmick where he's stoic and he doesn't show any emotion. If I don't see any emotion, I don't really care about you when you're getting beat up. And that's going to be something that he's got to figure out. That's something that Undertaker had to figure out when Undertaker was selling because – he worked really hard on not changing his facial expression when he was selling. If you can't read that face, it's hard to understand what you're going through. It's hard to understand the struggle. When he's on the offense, I completely buy it. I get that. So his offense is good. But when he's on the sell, it's a little off. It's just a bit different for me. I thought Roddy looked great, and I think it did like what I thought it was going to do as far as going forward with Dexter Lumis. Roddy's a wrestler. Roddy losing a strap match doesn't hurt him. It was fine.
All right. Well, that was NXT's Great American Bash Week 1, as we did with AEW's Fyter Fest Week 1. Let's get our final thoughts on the show as it presented itself. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good show. Again, wasn't great. Did it feel special? Had a bit of a different look, much like Fyter Fest did, but it was still the same NXT. The stories they told, I thought, were very good. I think that they set forward a path to next week, which we will book in just a moment, and that was what they probably should have done. So, what did you guys think of the show? What were your takeaways? What was your, key takeaway from the show, and your overall thoughts on NXT's Great American Bash Week 1, Night 1, David Hero?
I loved the set and the way the PC looked. It didn't look like a normal NXT setup this time. I thought the lighting looked good. I thought everything looked good. My takeaway is, with everything that happened in NXT, we really didn't get a chance to see Adam Cole. We didn't really get a chance to see Keith Lee setting up their match for next week. The takeaway for me was Sasha and Asuka. Mm-hmm. And it's like they used that to get ready for Extreme Rules horror show. That I'm still not sure why it's called horror show yet.
What's the horror show? And be careful when you say that.
Well, I mean, obviously it's going to be Bray Wyatt against Braun Strowman in a Wyatt street fight, whatever it's going to be, another cinematic match. But I just thought it was interesting that you didn't really use that 120 minutes you had to truly build up to the following week, where you didn't really announce a whole lot. There was so much going on. I don't remember what matches they announced for next week besides Keith Lee and Adam Cole.
Well, we saw a video package for the 6-man tag team match as well. We saw that going down. So
right.
That's 2 of 3. And then we've got Mia Yim and Candice LeRae. It's a street fight next week.
So, I mean, I don't know if that's going to be strong enough for them to go up against the Fyter Fest show next week.
Coming into this week, did you think it was strong enough to go against Fyter Fest, and did it?
No, I didn't think it was strong enough because I had to sit through a Timothy Thatcher match, and for me, it made no sense. That match, I mean, Shane, correct me if I'm wrong. When was the last time you saw 2 guys with the exact same style like that go out there and do a match that wasn't in the 1970s? You know what I mean? Because you took that show from having like some fire and some feel and charisma, and you just drove it straight into the ground because the fans do not want to see two guys do just ground and pound unless it's on some website somewhere.
Shane Helms did not say that.
Here's the thing, Shane. You keep on saying you didn't say that, and you didn't say that. But last week and previous weeks, you usually do say that. Being here this week doesn't mean that Shane Helms didn't say that. It's going to be trending because you didn't say it this week, even though you say it every other week.
I can see fans not liking that. I can see certain people not liking that style of match. I didn't hate it. I'm not going to say I hated it as bad. But, going up against Fyter Fest, that was one of the matches I did kind of flip the channels on a couple times. And, I mean, it just is what it is. Like I say, I liked it. I didn't hate it. But I understand if fans, and I understand Dave not being a fan of that particular Thatch Can, as Shanna Blazer called it.
I see what you did there. It was nice. Clever.
That was a Shanna Blazer. She tweeted that. I got to give credit to her.
But Shane Helms, I don't mind the match if he has a different opponent that's not doing that same style.
Well, see, I feel like I wouldn't have minded the style, but I would have wanted more of a build-up. If you see Thatcher beating the shit out of people like that, and then you got Oni going, oh, yeah, well, watch what I do this week, Timothy, and he beats him up. And so you get, that would have been the same thing as, Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar had the same styles. I would still like to see them fight each other. I've been begging for it for damn years. Right. We all have.
There's one huge difference, though, Shane, and you know this. Lashley and Lesnar have a ton of charisma together.
Yeah, but you were talking about styles. I mean, if you're talking about just similar styles, I think that can be done. I think that would have been fine. I just think that was a match that needed build-up. You needed more of a build-up for that match to get me invested. Or else I'm just watching I'm just watching a wrestling match. There's a reason, I got heat for saying this in the past, but the Olympics don't have pay-per-views. There's a reason for that.
No, they don't.
Well, speaking of pay-per-views, these aren't pay-per-views, but they're special events, special shows from both companies, if you will. And now it's time, as we are in overtime here on the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time with Hurricane-Helms, to be the book in a quick fashion for both next week's NXT Great American Bash Night 2 Part 2 and also AEW's Fyter Fest next week, Part 2, Week 2. So, the matches for NXT. And we'll go back and forth. We'll start with you, Shane. Actually, we'll start with the loser, Dave. You can pick first. It will be a 6-man tag team match as Breezango, Tyler Breeze and Fandango, along with Drake Maverick, go up against El Segundo de Fantasma of 3 people whose names I can't really say.
Well, it's DJ Zima Ion and La Mariachi, I think is what it was. But
it's
you know what?
Jaquan Wild and Raul Mendoza.
You know what is cool is how Breezango came out a week or so after them saying it's time for them to get serious again. And I was curious to see who they were going to pair up with Drake Maverick because he can't take on 3 guys by himself. So I think it's going to be interesting. I hope it's Breezango with more of an edge to them than just coming out and doing the Fashion Police. You got to believe that Breezango and Drake Maverick have to get the win on this one because Drake's been getting beaten down the last few weeks, and Breezango they need a shot in the arm.
Shane Helms, how would you book this matchup? Dave's going to go with Breezango for the win. Breezango for the win. How about you?
I agree with that. I also see them possibly if they're going to put the Cruiserweight title ever on Drake Maverick, I can see them continuing to put the heat on him. That the Santos somehow is able to steal a win, to get more heat, to keep rubbing it in Drake's face, and Drake finally at some point getting that Cruiserweight title. I can see that. But also I feel a little bit better going with Breezango and Drake here because you might also not need to take that cruiserweight title off Santos. So maybe Drake gets the win on Santos here, get a little bit of that steam back that leads to a singles match with them. So I'm agreeing with Dave on this. So write it down, Damian.
Writing it down.
I'm going with Breezango and Drake to get the win here.
Next matchup is a street fight. It will be the winner. It will be Candice LeRae rather versus Mia Yim as a result of what we saw this past week on NXT Great American Bash. Shane, how would you book it?
Street fight, that kind of seems like that's more Mia Yim's gimmick. I don't know. Candice LeRae's got a pretty good hardcore background as well. So that one could go either way. I feel like Mia Yim needs a little bit more of the two. As a heel losing a street fight doesn't bother me. But then again, Candice LeRae, she did go out first in the four-way this past Wednesday, so she needs something as well, but I'm going to go with Mia Yim here.
Shane Helms going with Mia Yim to win that matchup. David Hero, what do you say in the street fight?
Absolutely the same thing. Mia Yim needs something because she's just been a great ride-along. She hasn't done anything spectacular lately, I don't think, since leading up to WrestleMania. But let's also not forget that now that we know that it's going to be Jon Moxley and Brian Cage in 2 weeks from now, you have to figure NXT is going to be booking next week's show to build some heat and some bigger matches to go against Moxley and Cage in 2 weeks as well.
Interesting. Okay. So you're going with whom in that match? Mia Yim?
I'm gonna go with Mia Yim also. Yes.
Mia, thank you for correcting me. Next matchup is it's a winner takes all match. The NXT Championship versus the NXT North American Championship. Somebody's walking away with all the gold, and it's going to be Adam Cole, the NXT champion, defending against Keith Lee, the North American champion. Man almighty, this one could be a good match for sure. You got two very conflicting and different styles, which is going to make where I think good competition. But Dave, what would you do? How would you book this matchup where the winner takes all?
Well, a couple weeks ago, I picked Johnny Gargano to beat Keith Lee to become the new North American champion, and I guess I couldn't have been more wrong than I was. So I'd be crazy to bet against Keith Lee again. I think it's his time. I think it's Adam Cole. He's done everything there is to do as the NXT heavyweight champion. He has the longest reigning NXT heavyweight champion. You have to believe he's getting ready to go up to either Raw or SmackDown. But it's kind of hard to bet against Big Keith Lee right now, especially the way they've been building him up in the packages. Once again, they pointed out how he went toe-to-toe with Brock Lesnar. You don't mention that in your promo, in your vignette leading up to a match against Adam Cole, to have somebody the size of his thigh that could possibly beat him. So I have to believe that Keith Lee is going to leave with both belts next Wednesday night.
David Hero for Keith Lee. Keith Lee with the win on Fighter. Nope, I'm sorry. This is NXT next week. Now we got matches to transition over to talk about during.
Whoa! Pump the brakes. Shane didn't pick his match.
He ain't gonna let me pick. I see how it is. The fix is in.
After 75 minutes, I start to lose my touch a little bit. So Shane, which winner takes all?
This was tough because I know, Dave, you talk about Adam Cole moving up. Maybe Keith Lee is the one that's going to move up to the main roster. Maybe that's why they keep mentioning Brock Lesnar in all of these promos. Maybe it's time for I know we both know Vince likes big guys. It's a big man's territory, kid. I definitely think that Keith Lee is ready for the main roster. I think he can excel on the main roster, but he can't go to the main roster with both of those titles. So this one's a little bit tougher pick than you think. I know you guys think I would go with Keith Lee. I think if they're both staying, you go with Keith Lee. If Keith Lee is staying in NXT, I keep those belts on him. You have that good, powerful moment of him holding both those belts up. But I think Adam Cole might be the one that squeaks out the win here. This one's really, really, really tough. But Man. This was tough. I guess I'll go with Keith Lee, but don't be surprised if Adam Cole wins. But I'll go with Keith Lee too.
Don't you think the money is in Big Keith Lee against Karrion Kross eventually? Or is there more money in Karrion Kross against Adam Cole?
I think Karrion Kross looks more like a monster against Adam Cole than he does against Keith Lee. So,
but is it more impressive if Karrion Kross can beat Keith Lee? Because Karrion Kross is the future of NXT as far as I'm concerned. He's the guy they're going to run with.
Bold statement. The future.
Yeah. You got a solid point there. I mean, that's why this is a good match. That's why this is a good match, because you don't know who's going to win. This isn't a predictable match. It isn't an easily predictable match. I like it. So, I don't disagree with what you're saying, and I might even have to text you guys during the week and say, hey, I think I'm going with Adam Cole. As long as we make it public, it public on Twitter, I might have to do that. But man, I kind of feel like Adam Cole will stay in NXT forever. That's Sean's boy, he loves him. But like Dave said, what more else can he do there? So I don't know. I guess I'm still staying with Keith Lee.
I mean, okay, but talking about Adam Cole being called, what does Vince McMahon do with an Adam Cole? That's the big question. Because at the end of the day, we all know that no matter who they put in charge of creative, ultimately that final stamp is VKM.
Mm-hmm. I mean, well, Adam Cole's got some good backers. When you got Sean and Hunter as your main supporters, that's a lot of thumbs there. That's some powerful thumbs there, supporting you. So I don't know. I feel like Adam, like you said, I don't know what else he can do in NXT. He can't just keep winning the belt and just being the guy forever. So that's why I'm gonna go with Keith Lee on this one. But I think Keith Lee's a main roster guy. That's my big hang up here. I think Keith Lee is going to be one of the guys that's going to go on. I think you can see Keith Lee in WrestleMania. Him and Brock, that's still a match to have. I want to see Keith Lee and Brock a lot more than I want to see Keith Lee and Karrion Kross.
Let's not forget the Royal Rumble, Shane. You mentioned earlier that you believe there's unfinished business between the two. It was the Royal Rumble where that engine was started, if you will. The ignition switch was turned. And
it started in the Survivor Series. He had that good last couple of minutes with Roman Reigns, and the entire audience believed that Keith Lee was going to pin Roman Reigns. They were on the edge of their seat. They bought all the false finishes. That was Keith Lee's moment. Brock just made it even better. The way Brock sold him, just on appearance alone, Brock just elevated it to another level.
So, Shane, who was the producer for that Survivor Series match?
Shane Helms said that. myself and Jamie Noble work.
Full disclosure. I think this is where you say, my name is Shane Helms, and I approve this message.
I do approve that message, 100%.
Well, folks, now we're going to transition. It is time to move on to AEW. It is night 2, week 2 of Fyter Fest. There are 6 matches. Let's get through this fairly quickly within the next 7 minutes if we can. Guys, don't want to rush you, but I know you're smart enough to work hard under pressure. First, let's talk about it. It is going to be Chris Jericho versus Orange Cassidy in a singles contest. This guy's a big fan of Cassidy. Jericho is, of course, a tremendous veteran. The story, the build over the last couple of weeks, Orange Cassidy this past week, or last night rather, coming out still with a bloodied shirt. The story's there. Well, what would you do in the match? We'll start with you, Shane.
Chris Jericho. I think you keep Chris Jericho. He can build guys, but I think on the big stage right now, he still can get the win. It won't hurt Orange Cassidy whatsoever to lose to Chris Jericho. I think Chris Jericho can do it. He can do it dastardly. I don't think he has to go out there and just beat him clean. But I keep the steam on Chris Jericho. I think, like I said, I've said a couple of weeks in a row, he's the biggest star in the business right now. Chris Jericho.
David Hero.
I cannot disagree with that at all. If Orange Cassidy beats Chris Jericho, that's just bad for business.
Why is that bad for business? Why is it bad for business?
Because look at all the guys in the last year and a half. that couldn't beat Chris Jericho, and then the guy that has his hands in his pockets does. It just doesn't make any sense.
Maybe
Chris Jericho.
Maybe that makes it a good thing.
But here's the thing: how far can you elevate Orange Cassidy by beating Chris Jericho? You can't, because he's not going to wrestle against Jon Moxley for the world title, and he's not going to wrestle against Cody Rhodes for the TNT title. So he's going to be stuck in babyface purgatory and not do anything. But Chris Jericho can get a ton of heat on Orange Cassidy and make Orange Cassidy a bigger star just by beating his ass again.
The only thing I would disagree with is because I was in Orange Cassidy's position when I beat The Rock. There were definitely people that didn't want me to beat The Rock, and they were saying the same things that Dave said. It won't – he has the potential. It could happen, just with Chris Jericho not being the AEW champion, and I feel he still should be, and I think we both agree on that. Where he's at right now, Chris has to be an ass kicker to get him back in that position where, I don't think right now he's fine on commentary. He's actually excellent on commentary, but I don't think right now I need Chris Jericho putting over everybody in AEW. He helped build Orange Cassidy. These last couple of weeks have been fantastic. He's made Orange Cassidy a star, and I don't think we got to put a cap on where Orange Cassidy can go. But for right now, I'm still picking Chris Jericho.
Next matchup is another singles matchup. It's going to be Lance Archer with Jake the Snake Roberts going up against Joey Janela. And Shane, I think you get first picks on both.
Lance Archer. I think you roll. You got to get that steam back on him. He didn't. He came in strong, and then he lost the TNT opportunity with Cody in the finals of the TNT Championship tournament, and I think we get back with him rolling. He's a big monster. I think he murders Joey Janela, and Joey will look good doing it. They can do something crazy. Joey can take a good ass whooping. He's a tough guy. And
you just mentioned how good Jericho is in commentary. Did you catch what he said last night in the matchup between Penelope Ford and Shida, where he said that Penelope may have lost the match, but she just actually won at the same time, something like that, which you've heard us sold in storyline form, but I don't know if we ever have heard it just be flat out said about how you don't need to win a match to get over, I guess is the point.
Well, about an hour and 6 minutes ago, Shane said the exact same thing.
Yeah. One person goes over, one person gets over. Remember that?
No, my monitor went out. I didn't hear that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean that's the whole premise of Rocky. The first Rocky, remember, he didn't win. He got over by not winning.
Joey Janela and Lance Archer. Lance Archer should kill Joey Janela. Don't you agree? Lance Archer should kill Joey Janela. But there's just a part of me that thinks I could see them just scooting and rolling them up quick, and Joey Janela and Sonny Kiss working together to beat the big bully and just steal one, only for Archer to get it back. Because we've been so much on the same path on these matches, I'm going to go with Joey Janela, and Shane's going to have Lance Archer.
All right. Well, that's a bold pick there, David Hero. Let's see what pans out next week at Fyter Fest. We're going to skip the Nyla Rose match because it's a TBA opponent, and we just ain't nobody got time for that right now. Not that it's going to be bad, but we don't know who the opponent is. But we do know it will be a 6-man tag team match as Colt Cabana and the Dark Order, comprised of Brody Lee and Stu Grayson, going up against SoCal Uncensored, Christopher Daniels, Frankie Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky coming together again for the first time in what seems like a long time. David Hero, who takes the win in that 6-man tag team match if you were booking it?
SCU. Kazarian and Daniels had such a great match with FTR, and FTR are head and shoulders above the Dark Order and Colt Cabana. You got to go with SCU, especially with Scorpio Sky coming back for his return.
Shane Helms, what do you think?
Yeah, I feel like storyline-wise, if you're going to keep pushing the Colt Cabana story with Brody Lee, that you need them to win. But at the same time, I don't want to see SCU lose, especially off the strength of that tag team match they had last week, which was on short notice, I believe. But man, That was pretty tough. I'm gonna go with SCU. I know. I mean, sometimes we're just going to be on the same page. That's just how it's going to be. And this might be one of those weeks. But this was a little tough too. But I guess I'll go with SCU just because, like Dave said, fantastic match last week. This is the first time we've seen them back at full strength in a while. So unless they're finally going to break them up and Scorpio Sky gets his single push, who knows? But I think SCU is the way to go to.
Next is an 8-man tag team matchup. It's been a while since we've seen one of these, it feels. Let me read along here so I can follow along. And that will be FTR in action, Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood, and the Young Bucks, the Jacksons, versus the Butcher and the Blade, and the Lucha Brothers, Pentagon Jr. and Ray Phoenix. So it's an 8-man tag team matchup. This one's going to be wild, no doubt. Dave, how would you book it? Here we go.
Obviously, well, I mean, you would like to believe FTR and the Young Bucks would dominate, but you kind of got to go with the Butcher and the Baker and the Lucha Brothers because that's Blade. The Butcher and the Blade. Because with FTR and the Young Bucks, that's the match we're waiting for, and the dissension has to start where they're not going to want to team together in this 8-man. And I just think that the Lucha Brothers and Butcher and Blade, they need this win more than FTR does because FTR is super over, and I can see the Young Bucks or FTR costing the Young Bucks or FTR the match, and I'm going to go with the heels.
Interesting point. This could be the way to tease us with FTR and the Young Bucks as they've been doing very, very well since FTR came in. Shane, how would you book this 8-man tag team matchup?
Yeah, I wish you would have picked me first to this because I would have said the exact same thing. This is where FTR, kicks the Young Bucks in the balls and leave them, and bail on the match and let Butcher and the Blade and the Lucha Brothers get the win here. I'm going with the heels on this one. If there really are heels, I think the Butcher and the Blade are the only heels in the match. So yeah, I'm going with that. It just seems too obvious, But then again, the FTR, they're still relatively new. I think because us 3 years of watching the business, we FTR isn't new to us. But to AEW fans, they still are new. So I could also see them keeping that steam rolling, and just get these big moments. But I think that we got some dissension in the ranks. It rears its ugly head in this match. And Butcher and the Blade and the Lucha Brothers get the win somehow.
Well, and if you look at it, since
they need it, otherwise I don't know how much further I'm gonna be interested in Butcher and the Blade because they just get beat all the time. It seems Lucha Brothers haven't done anything in a while, not of real import. So I think they need that. I think they need to win more.
And with FTR, ever since they have showed up, the Elite, with the exception of Cody Rhodes, I'm talking about the Young Bucks and now Paige and Omega, have done nothing but disrespect FTR every week they've been on TV together.
Mm-hmm. It's the little things, right? The little things along the way that they're showing us that are happening that will possibly come to fruition next week at week 2 of Fyter Fest. Folks, it will be a tag team championship matchup. This is the only championship matchup on week 2 after a series of every other championship being defended.
Yeah, it's Omega and yes, Omega and Paige, right?
Yeah,
it's Kenny Omega and Adam Page, tag champions, defending against Private Party with Matt Hardy.
I'm first one on this one, right? That's got to be Adam Page and Kenny Omega. I mean, if they just beat the best friends, they got to be able to run through the Private Party.
All right, valid point, David Hero. What say you?
Yeah,
you struggle so much.
No. Just Private Party did nothing to impress me last night. They didn't do anything special, and if anything, I could see Paige and Omega winning. And then Private Party turning on Matt Hardy because Matt Hardy needs to jump off that Titanic of a ship because they ain't going anywhere. They're just They're not even close to being in the top 5 in the tag teams in AEW right now. And I don't know why Matt. Well, because you have FTR, you have Omega and Page, you have SCU, you have Lucha Brothers, you have the Young Bucks, you have Best Friends as 6, and then you got to put, the Lucha Express is number 7. Private Party's not even the top 10 tag teams in AEW right now. So if I'm Matt Hardy, I'm jumping off that ship, go for a swim and come back out as somebody else, because that's just a losing that's just a losing cause for him. Omega and Page are going to win that one easily.
All right. Well, it seems like we end this week's Be the Booker with agreement again. You guys are agreeing a lot more as the weeks go on, which means one of you is educating the other, and I have to assume that education is only happening from the winner to the loser. So, Dave, you've been taking to school, it seems.
Yeah, well, and I'm taking a lot of notes. But so basically what the entire next week comes down to is Lance Archer versus Joey Janela. Whoever wins that match wins. Or what's going to happen is every match that Shane and I picked together, which is all of them except for one, we're going to be wrong on every one of those.
That'd be fantastic. It'd be fantastic if we don't win anything. We're going to have to start doing this thing where it was something I used to do with guys in MMA where we flipped a coin on who got to pick the one. And so we can talk about what we would do. Mm-hmm. Because, if you get to go first, whatever, if you were to pick Lance and I would get stuck with Joey in that, we might have to figure that out sometime. So
that is a fair point. We'll put that in before the review board, which is, Dave isn't on it, so we'll be all right.
Of course not.
I want to thank our partners at Collar and Elbow brand for making PWR possible to bring to you here on the Super Show. This actually should be the Super Show. We call the Saturday night show the Super Show, but we got a superhero on this show. So what the heck was?
Whoa! You have a superhero and a super friend.
I'm super, and he's hero.
Yeah, there you have it. See,
what am I? I mean, in this world,
you're Black Lightning.
So AEW Fighter Fest Part 2, Week 2 next week.
Hey, that's a lot better than Black Vulcan.
Yes, that is so true. Yes. Who was the guy that always go to the coffee shop? Which one was that one again? The Marvel guy? Luke Cage. You could be him.
Why can't I be Black Panther? Why can't I be Captain America?
Well, you know what?
I'm sticking with Black Vulcan. Now you
On that note, folks, thank you very much for joining us. And as we said, as you saw at the bottom of the screen, share your thoughts. Share your Be the Booker, if you will. You can go ahead and play this game as well. Share what you book. As you know, we re-air this show just before the events. We didn't do it this past Tuesday night, unfortunately. We will do it next week so that you can catch up and see why. The most important part about Be the Booker is not necessarily Dave losing every week, but the why Shane and Dave are booking the matches the way they do. The goal is to give you a bit more insight into the world of professional wrestling from a promoter standpoint, from a wrestler standpoint, from a producer standpoint, and to give you a bit more as to the why. Because a lot of times in professional wrestling, we don't focus enough on the why. We focus enough on the I told you so or I was right. And that's not what this show is about. It is about giving you discussion to bring you into the loop, if you will. So thank you for joining us here on Fight TV, FITE Fight. If you are pleased with what you heard tonight, which we know you are, be sure to join us and subscribe to the podcast. Just search for PWR Primetime with Hurricane-Helms to subscribe and rate us and give us your comments on our podcast and take us with you on the go, in addition to our Saturday night show at 7 p.m. on Fight TV and our Monday through Friday podcast called PWR Today, available on all of our socials and also on the podcast network of PWR. So with that, Shane, Dave, anything to say before we depart the audience here in overtime tonight?
I can't wait to talk about TNA next week, Impact Wrestling.
Oh.
Me too. I'm being shoot honest.
Yeah.
It's very, like I said, it's the most underrated show going on right now.
What? Sorry, I'm being called away. You guys have a great night. Thank you for joining us here on Fight TV. For Shane Hurricane-Helms and that one, this is Damian saying thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time here on the Pro Wrestling Report, Prime Time Live.